Hi, my name is Tom. I am a maritime English teacher with School Ship Gone in Stavanger, Norway. Today I'm going to be continuing with English for Mariners, a textbook written by Tony Grice. It is part of the lifelong learning program produced by the EU, which is also responsible for the Marang learning tool. If you look this up on the internet, you'll find some software you can download on your computer, which has got fantastic texts and exercises to continue learning maritime English. As well, the Marang Plus, which you find by Googling as well, is also software which you can download to have while at sea and to start with the very basics of maritime English. Today I'm going to be on the advanced or intermediate level. We're going to go into Unit 5A, cargo handling. Today I'm just going to be doing exercises 1 and 2. I've got quite a lot of information just about ship types that I want to show out there as well, and cargo types, which are related to ship types. Talk a little bit about containers and the different modes of transportation. So we're just going to be going into a little bit more theory today. Next time we'll continue with the rest of the exercises in Unit 5A. Okay, as usual, we're going to start with the first exercise, which has research questions. So use the internet, a dictionary, or hopefully what you already know, and go ahead and answer these 5 questions. 1. Which of the following is not dry cargo? Iron ore, sand, bottled gas, or cars? And 2. What type of a vessel is a lash mother? Is it a small vessel for carrying people, a vessel that carry barges, or a prototype vessel? 3. What is a ro-ro vessel? A vessel for transporting vehicles, a vessel with no engine, a dredger. And 4. How much of the world's cargo is transported by ship? About half, 75%, or 90%? And 5. What is marine debris? Wrecks, oil discharged into the sea, or cargo lost overboard? Okay, take 4 minutes and answer these questions. Try to find a reason why you're saying one or the other. Have a foundation, a basis for your answer. Here we go, 4 minutes.
Bad old putty cat.
Be very quiet. I'm hunting rabbit.
My, aren't we touchy today? Conference. Podcast. That's all, folks.
Okay, great. So let's look at the answers. Number 1, which of the following is not dry cargo? Well, we have iron ore. That is dry cargo. In Norwegian we say malm. It's what you take out of the ground to make steel, as well as iron. Sand, well, that is dry. And cars, that is pretty dry, yes. And so it would be bottled gas. Well, gas is a gas, but when it's bottled, compressed, generally the temperature sinks when it's cooled down and it condenses into a liquid. So that's why, yes, we say bottled gas is not dry cargo. In a cooled down state, it would be a liquid. And bottled gas is what's known as a hazardous cargo. Hazardous is another word for dangerous cargo. I'm sure you've heard the term hazmat for hazardous materials. You have a sign here, flammable, which means it can ignite, it can light on fire. IMO, the International Maritime Organization, actually has a list of 9 different types of hazardous cargo, and it starts with 1, explosives, and then what we have here, gases, either flammable or non-flammable, and then flammable liquids, flammable solids, then oxidizers, organic peroxides, and then poisons or infectious substances, radioactive, corrosive, which actually eats away whatever material, and then 9 for miscellaneous. Now, bottled gas, you may not think that's so hazardous if you've ever transported that, but actually it can be pretty nasty. Look what happened here on the highway in Russia. This is a truck carrying bottled gas. Just when you think it's safe, it's not. Okay, well now don't forget that most vessels have bottled gas in one form or the other. If you're welding or if you have smoke diving for breathing apparatuses, so be careful whenever you're dealing with bottled gas because it's flammable under pressure and it can cause some serious problems. One of those going off could put a hole right through your ship. Okay, so now number 2, what type of vessel is a lash mother? Well, you'd have to have looked up the word lash vessel, and that is actually a vessel that carries barges. So here is a picture of a lash vessel, and lash stands for lighter aboard ship, and lighter is another word for a barge. Now a barge is generally a watercraft that's either self-propelled or needs to be towed by, for example, a tugboat or another vessel. That it's used mainly for places where there's not much of an infrastructure, where there's few highways and there's mostly rivers. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Now, a normal transport cycle, you'd have the producer putting the product, the cargo, into bags, boxes, crates, whatever, and then loading those maybe on a pallet and putting those in a container maybe, or a reefer. A reefer, it can be a container which has got refrigerated unit on top of it, and that container or just the pallets and bags and crates can go into a truck, and then perhaps maybe also to a train to go even a longer distance overland, and then they've got to be loaded onto a vessel and then unloaded after they get to their port of destination, and then perhaps back onto a train or to a truck, and then maybe to a factory where the manufacturing process is finished, and then maybe onto a truck again, and then finally to a consumer. Now, if you're in a country, for example, like Bangladesh or Brazil, where you may not have so much of an infrastructure of highways or rails, you have the lash vessels. Lash vessels, they don't require special docks or terminals or roads or rails at all. These vessels are holding up to 80, 100 different barges, and here you can see what the lash barges look like. And they unload, they can go to a mooring buoy or they can anchor offshore, and they'll unload their barges, and then the barges will then be either connected up together. You can see they can be lashed together, or they can be individually towed by a tugboat or another vessel. And then these barges would go upstream and either pick up cargo or drop off cargo. And inside, maybe you can see that you could open up the hatches and have bulk cargo, or you could have bagged cargo, or even vehicles or pipes, grain, all sorts of different cargo can go inside these. And so then once the cargo is dropped off or picked up, the barges come back to the mother vessel. That's what we're talking about, the lash mother, the mother vessel. She collects up all the barges and then she takes off. So basically lash ships are for areas with no rail or very little rail or highway. So there's no trains, there's no trucks, and they use a river system for transport instead of highway or rail. Okay, let's go back now. Number 3, what is a ro-ro vessel? Well, is it a vessel for transporting vehicles? Yes. Ro-ro stands for roll on and roll off. And then you can see I have up here in the right upper hand corner, we're going to look at in just a second, the division of different types of cargo and the ships that carry those cargoes. So ro-ro falls under the category of neo-bulk cargo. That's actually a quite new category, neo-bulk cargo. And for example, the Swedish-Norwegian ship-owning company Wallenius Wilhelmsen, they are one of the largest neo-bulk car carriers, and you can see here is an example of a pure ro-ro vessel, which carries vehicles that can roll on, roll off. You can tell these generally with the ramp and the box shape of the vessels. And there's no loading cargo handling facilities on the ship. There's also a category called row packs, which is roll on, roll off, and carrying passengers. And this in Norway, Scandinavia, we see all the time with ferries going over to Denmark or between different islands. We have the ramp at the back, which means a car deck, and then you have the passengers as well that can go on there. So Gone, our ship as well, is classified still as a row, but I would think of it more as a row packs. Okay, well, if we go here and take a look at the different types of cargo, if we make a classification, you can see that we generally make the main division between packed, general cargo, and unpacked, which is bulk cargo. Okay, so those are our two. There's a package, there's a container holding the cargo, or no container, nothing at all. And then we recognize that as being bulk cargo. So now if we go into pack, we look at the different types of containers used. We first have break bulk cargo. And here we can have all different types of containers holding cargo. For example, bags or barrels, drums, pallets with boxes maybe on it, or crates on top of the boxes. We're going to be looking at this a little later, what these different types of containers are. But generally, in the Marang learning tool, they use the Marina as being the main star vessel of the whole program, and it's a multi-purpose dry cargo vessel, otherwise known as a Lolo. So we learned about row. We'll take that in just a second. Let's start off with Lolo. Lolo means lift on, lift off. And one type of Lolo is the multi-purpose dry cargo vessel, which you can see a picture of here. And on board, she's a geared vessel. She's got her own cargo handling, in this case derricks on board. And she doesn't need any kind of quayside crane. She can go pretty much anywhere and load and unload cargo. So that gives her a lot of independence. And so you can see up here on the right hand corner we have a reefer. And as I said, a reefer can be a truck, it can be a container, and it's also a ship is a reefer. It's a refrigerated cargo ship. And you see as well, she's a geared vessel. She has her own cranes here for loading and unloading. And reefer ships are for perishable commodities. Perishable means it goes bad in a relatively short amount of time, like fruit or meat or fish, vegetables, dairy products. And so they need temperature control. And down below here we see as well another Lolo. And you can see it's a multi-purpose vessel. It can lift on and off anywhere from containers to ships even here, some yachts on this one here. It can take bulk, but it's generally break bulk. Okay, so if we go back, we can see that's break bulk cargo. And among the different types of vessels that take break bulk is the Lolo. And then we have the Neo bulk. Now, Neo bulk can take cars and trucks. Let's just take a picture because it combines both the row and the low. So it can actually take, so if we go up in the upper right hand corner here, here is a pure row vessel. You can see the ramp at the back, and you can see the different decks taking different types of vehicles that can roll on and roll off the vessel. Now if we go down here below, you can see some derricks, cargo handling. So this is a geared vessel. We say a geared vessel has its own cargo handling facilities. So here we can see some derricks, and you can see that it's a very versatile ship. At the bottom they can have containers or break bulk, and then on top they've got a row deck with a ramp at the back. So it's a combination row Lolo. And then over here as well, to the left, you can see we have a row container ship combination with the ramp at the back, and then on top we have containers stored above deck. With below deck we've got the row decks for cars, vehicles, trucks, whatever. But hopefully you notice here that this row container ship is not a geared vessel. She does not have her own cargo handling gear, so she's dependent upon quayside cranes to unload or load the containers. But of course, the ro-ro, the roll-on, roll-off vehicles, trucks, can get on and off the vessel by themselves. Great. So that's neo bulk cargo. If we look now at the last category under packed or general cargo, we have standardized cargo. When we say standardized, it's a standard size that is being shipped in the cargo. Now we have container ships, which have standard size of containers. Now container ships and containers have revolutionized shipping after the Second World War, starting in the 50s. But we also have these lash vessels. I tried to show you the difference before between the infrastructure of rail and road for container ships are dependent upon, and where lash vessels work in areas where there is no infrastructure and they use rivers. But also, as well as containers being a standard size, the lash barges are also a standard size, so I would put them under standardized cargo as well. And if we just take a look now at these two, in these lash barges, they can take, like I said, anywhere from pallets to break bulk to bulk cargo that can go up and down the different river systems. In a container ship, these containers generally have any kind of break bulk which is put onto pallets, so you can have bags or drums or barrels, crates, bales that can be loaded onto pallets and then rolled inside the container. The container is then put on top of a truck or a rail car, and then they can be shipped directly, or they put directly onto a container ship. So we have different standard sizes. The most commonly used term is TEU for the 20-foot equivalent size, and then you have double that, the FEU, 40-foot equivalent size. The containers come in this 40-foot version, 20-foot, and there's actually a 10-foot version as well. But when you're looking at the different size of these container ships, they refer to the TEU as how many 20-foot equivalent units the ship can take. So for Maersk, for example, you go all the way from a medium-sized container ship at 7,100 TEUs all the way up to their big super-sized Maersk Triple E class taking 18,000 20-foot equivalent units. And then just so you know, on a container ship, it's quite a complicated program knowing when and where a container is going to go on and off the ship, and you need to be able to find that container at a specific time. So they're organized in a 3D pattern of bays and tiers and rows so that you can find that container when you need it. So the tiers are like floors of a building. They're stacked on top of each other, going from the first, second, third, fourth tiers. Of course, these containers are going all the way down into the hold of the ship. And then you have bays, which are the different forward to aft of the containers, and then also rows, which are a beam. Great. So if we leave now the packed cargo, general cargo, and we go over to the unpacked bulk cargo. Bulk cargo will be divided up into liquid bulk and dry bulk. Now, there's lots of different types of liquid bulk. You're probably thinking of gas or petrol or liquid natural gas, LNG, but there's also chemical tankers, but there's lots of different types of liquid. You have milk, juice, wine, molasses. It's a whole variety. And it's generally tankers that are going to be transporting liquid cargo, liquid bulk cargo. So here's the classic shape of a tanker. And this is the very largest size, a ULCC, ultra-large crude carrier. When they say crude, they're talking about crude oil. So this is taking unrefined crude oil. And the next size down for that is VLC, very large crude carrier. You see the size, 415 meters from stem to stern. And then, how do you recognize this? Because you'll see that a ULBC A very ultra large bulk carrier has the same basic shape as this, but you don't see any hatches on deck. You only see piping here on deck. I'll show you a bulker in just a second. But if we switch now over here to a chemical tanker, you'll see that there is an incredible amount of piping going on deck here now, because that is very hazardous cargo. So they have firefighting facilities, what's known as a Fi-Fi system, all over the ship, but carbon monoxide as being one of them to put out any fires that might happen. So chemical tanker you'll recognize by having an incredible amount of piping on deck. And then the LNG, liquid natural gas, this is easy to recognize. We have a lot of these going up and down the coast of Norway from the Snow White oil field up north. Liquid natural gas is compressed, cooled down to like -60. That's why we have these domes on deck here, which are compressing and keeping cool this gas as it's being transported. And then LPG, that stands for liquid petroleum gas. And that, if that explodes, is like a major kaboom. I don't know if you've seen, I showed you the bottled gas going off. When an LPG tank goes off, believe me, you know it. It's very, very dangerous. It has happened. They've broken the ships in half. And so over here you see a parcel tanker. It's a type of chemical tanker, and it, again, you can see the tanks on the deck here and a lot of piping. But these parcel tankers can take many different, up to 16 different types of chemicals at one time. So its tanks are divided up into a series of tanks taking, and they call it chemical. It's like a drugstore ship basically. Great, so that's liquid bulk. And now if we go over to dry bulk, and there's again lots of different types of bulk cargo: coal, grain, iron ore, bauxite. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but that is the basis ore for aluminum. And cement. Well, let's take a look at what the dry bulkers look like. Again, as I said, here's the classic shape of the bulker. But in this case, you don't have so much piping. You see, you have hatches, and you can see how the hatches slide here with the hatch covers going off. And here's another great picture down here. We have the same abbreviation, VLBC for very large bulk carrier, and ULBC, very ultra large bulk carrier. And here you can see a good picture of the hatches opening up. And these size of these gigantic vessels, they can't go into port, so they need to sit outside at anchor ports, and then they have shuttle tankers or shuttle vessels going back and forth, picking up and dropping off cargo. And up here on the right hand side you can see a combination ore and oil carrier. It's a bulker, but it's taking both dry and liquid bulk. It's known as an OBO, or a combination carrier, and you see both piping and hatches on deck, and that's how you can recognize a OBO, or combination carrier. The classic shape, as well as the superstructure being aft in the stern of the ship. And then we have a much smaller size vessel here. It's known as a coaster. They generally hang along the coast. They have either one or maybe a separated hold for carrying bulk. They can take break bulk as well, so they're versatile. But they have a very shallow hull so that they can go up rivers as well, or very short sea voyages. So this is what we see in Norway quite a lot with gravel, or lots of different cargoes that we have here. So it's known as a coaster. Great. So that is the division of the different types of cargo and the vessels that take them. Of course, there's a lot more different types of vessels out there, but I'm just going to take a first stab at it with these few. Okay, well, let's get back to our questions now. How much of the world's cargo is transported by ship? Well, if you think about it, most of the cargo at sea today is bulk. It's either dry bulk or liquid bulk. So most of it is going by ship, 90%. You have as well, for example, cargo that's going on pallets and then going container ships. They are also going by train and truck as well, as I showed you. But just look at how much CO2 is emitted in comparison to shipping. Taking 1 ton of goods 1 kilometer, only 3 grams of CO2, but the same distance, the same amount, 18 grams by train, by truck 45 grams, and then by plane an incredible 560 grams. So yes, shipping is very environmentally friendly way to transport goods. And our last question, what is marine debris? Is that shipwrecks, oil discharged into the sea, or cargo lost overboard? Well, the answer is C, cargo lost overboard. Here, just for example, containers, the WSC, the World Shipping Council, estimates that an average of 1,600 containers are lost each year. And this causes a lot of havoc for other smaller marine traffic. It's amazing the danger of having shipping containers. Some of them might sink to the bottom of the ocean, but other ones are sitting there just under the surface, floating, not visible, and are run into constantly. Great. Let's go to the next exercise. I'm just going to give you 3 minutes for this one. Identify the type of vessels in the pictures here and what different cargoes do the pictures show. And then identify the following things in the pictures. Here we go. 3 minutes.
Come on, babies, work with me, people. All right, show me love. Great, baby, yeah! I'm in the dark here! Do you understand? I'm in the dark! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my underground lair.
Okay, great. So, identify the types of vessels in the pictures. Well, we talked about a container ship, so you can see this is a container ship, right? And you notice that the superstructure we're going to look for is going to be more midships than you see on a tanker or a bulker. And then over here, though, what the heck kind of a vessel is this? Well, if you're really good, you'd notice that that is no superstructure, no bridge, so it's a barge. So either this has got its own propulsion, it can get around on its own, or not. We can't really see from this. So then what kind of cargo do we have? A container ship, we said, was standardized, it's packed, and it's dry. So there you go. Packed, standardized, dry cargo. Over here we can see this is also dry cargo. I'm not quite sure what it is though. It could be sand, it could be grain, but it's bulk. There's no packaging, so it's bulk cargo. Dry, unpacked, bulk cargo. Great. So let's identify the following things. Superstructure, like we said, is here on a container ship. It's not so much aft in the stern. It's more towards midships. Containers, well, that's easy to see on a container ship. Key, it's not said quay, it said key. Key is the structure we moor the ship to. So we've got one here, and here's another key side as well. Lines, they're referring to mooring lines. The lines coming out of the back of the ship or the stern are called stern lines. You can see here as well. And then a portainer or a gantry, well, that is the crane that's used to take the containers or whatever other cargo off or on the ship. A portainer is a special type of container crane. There it is there. And then a hold, we're referring to a cargo hold. There's a hold on the container ship, but this one here is a lot easier to see. And then a grabber, that's this little thing here. It's kind of hard to see. It's connected up to a crane, but that's one way of getting bulk cargo out of a cargo hold. As well, you could use stevedores, which are dock workers, with bags, and then the bags can be lifted out either by hand or with a crane, but grabbers are used as well. And then poop deck, well, that is the aft mooring station where the mooring lines are coming out of. We call the aft mooring station the poop deck. Okay, well, I think that was enough to stow under your hatches for one session. We'll continue with the rest of the exercises next time. Okay then, bye-bye for now.